My name's Ethan Ward. I'm 36, and I used to be part of the Forest Rescue Division up in Oregon. That job nearly burned me alive, not because of the fire itself, but because of what it took from me. 3 hikers. I can still hear them screaming when the wind turned and the fire swallowed the ridge. I made it out. They didn't. After that, no one wanted me on their team, and, truth be told, I didn't want me either. So when I saw a quiet ranger position open at Black Hollow National Park in Northern California, it felt like maybe a chance to start over. The drive there took 6 hours through winding, narrow roads, the kind that look like they haven't seen a car in years. By the time I reached the main gate, the sun had already dipped below the pines, and the whole valley was soaked in that strange, gray-blue light that comes before night fully takes over. The sign over the entrance was barely legible, Black Hollow National Park, the paint cracked, moss eating away the letters. And beneath it, a smaller wooden board that someone had carved by hand. Stay on the trails. The words were nailed down again and again with rusted wire, like someone didn't want them falling off. The nearest town was almost 30 miles away. Out here, the forest doesn't sound like it's breathing. It sounds like it's listening. When I got to the ranger station, it looked older than it had any right to be. A 2-story cabin with an antenna bent by storms, windows fogged over from the inside. No light except for one lamp glowing faintly through the blinds. That's where I met Mrs. Nora Hale, the station chief. She was maybe in her late 60s, hair silver, eyes that seemed hollowed out by years of silence. She didn't smile when I introduced myself. She didn't even shake my hand. She just looked at me for a long time, then said quietly, "The woods here don't forgive curiosity. If you want to last, follow the list." I thought she was joking, until she reached in her desk drawer and pulled out an old yellowed paper, folded neatly, sealed with red wax. On the front, in careful handwriting, it said, "Rules for the Black Hollow Rangers." I didn't realize it then, but that single piece of paper would decide whether I lived or died in those woods. That night, I unpacked my things, made coffee, and stared at the folded note under the lamplight. The forest outside was silent, too silent, and for the first time in years, I felt like something was waiting for me. I sat at the old wooden desk in my cabin, the paper laid flat in front of me. The edges were yellowed, curling with age. The ink looked typewritten, but faint, like it had been copied over and over through decades. In the dim light of the desk lamp, I could still make out the smudges of dirt and fingerprints pressed into the corners. It smelled like iron and old smoke. At the top, in bold, uneven letters, it read, "Rules for the Black Hollow Rangers." Beneath it, there were 7 rules. 1. Never patrol alone after 10 p.m. If you must, leave a light trail behind. 2. If you see a deer walking backward, don't look at its eyes. Just walk away and pretend it's not there. 3. Do not respond to any voice on the radio between 3:33 and 3:34 a.m., even if it sounds like me. 4. If you find a tent that's not on the camping log, don't open it. Don't touch it. Leave immediately. 5. Whistling in the woods means someone is lost. But if the whistle repeats your tune, run. 6. Do not enter Trail 9. Ever. There is no Trail 9. 7. At dawn, if you hear knocking under the floorboards, knock back once. Never twice. I read them twice, then a third time. Each one felt more absurd than the last. I glanced over at Nora, who stood by the door with her hands folded in front of her, like she was attending a funeral. "This is a joke, right?" I asked. She didn't answer right away, just looked at me with that same hollow stare. "They're not jokes," she said finally. "They're rules. Follow them, and you'll see another sunrise." Before I could ask more, she turned and left. No goodbye, no explanation. The door closed with a sound that seemed to echo longer than it should have. I sat there, staring at the list, my thumb rubbing over the faded words. I wanted to laugh. I did laugh, actually, a short, nervous chuckle that died as soon as it came. It had to be some kind of hazing ritual. Every job had its weird initiation traditions, right? But something about the paper felt wrong. Not in a silly way, in a heavy way. The rules didn't feel written. They felt warned. I found an old folder in the drawer labeled Incident Logs. Half the pages inside were redacted, the rest faded beyond reading. But tucked between them was another sheet of paper, a list of names. The top one was David Chun. Next to it, a handwritten note. Trail 9 missing. Trail 9. The one that doesn't exist. The night outside had deepened into something more like ink than darkness. I could hear the wind slipping through the cracks of the cabin, the faint creaking of trees rubbing together. Somewhere far off, something knocked, once, twice, like what hitting would. I told myself it was just the forest settling. Just branches, nothing more. Still, I folded the rules and tucked them into my breast pocket, just in case. When I left my cabin to do a quick perimeter check, I noticed that every other ranger cabin had their porch lights on. A few even had lanterns lined up along the paths, faint, flickering lines cutting through the trees. A light trail, just like the first rule said. I remember whispering to myself, guess I'm not the only one taking this seriously. The forest didn't answer. It just listened. That night, as I crawled into bed, the list still burned in my mind. I didn't believe it yet, but part of me, deep down, didn't want to find out what would happen if I didn't. The first week passed quietly, almost too quietly. I did what any ranger would do. Walked the trails, logged fire risks, checked the water lines, kept track of wildlife patterns. Nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing that should have made my skin crawl. But there were little things. Small, wrong things that built up like static in the back of my mind. The cameras around the station would sometimes flicker and cut out at exactly 3:33 a.m. Every time, I'd check the system log the next morning. Nothing. No outages. No signal loss. No power issue. Just a clean record, like it never happened. Then there was the radio. I'd hear faint bursts of static during my shift, sometimes like someone was breathing just behind the signal, slow and steady. The kind of sound you only hear when someone's right next to the microphone, not miles away. The forest, too, had its own strange rhythm. Some nights it was dead silent, not even the sound of crickets. Other times, the trees themselves seemed to creak in unison, like the woods were adjusting. Watching. I told myself I was imagining it. Trauma, isolation, exhaustion, all the things I thought I'd left behind. But that illusion cracked one night near the end of the week. It was just past 9 p.m. I was making my rounds near the northern perimeter, where the tree line thickens into near total darkness. There's an old ranger cabin there, one we keep locked and empty because the foundation's collapsing. I was passing it when something moved just beyond the lamplight. At first I thought it was a shadow. Then I realized it had legs. 4 of them. A deer stepped into view, maybe 30 feet away. But it wasn't walking normally. It was walking backward, slow, deliberate steps, its hooves pressing into the dirt like it was rewinding through time. Its head was turned slightly toward me, one ear twitching, listening. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. Then I remembered the second rule. If you see a deer walking backward, don't look at its eyes. Just walk away and pretend it's not there. So I did exactly that. I turned, forced myself to keep a steady pace, didn't run. The whole time I could feel it behind me, that faint, muffled shuffling sound, getting softer the farther I got from the cabin. When I got back to the station, my hands were shaking. The next morning, I asked Nora about it. She didn't even blink. Then you did right to ignore it, she said. That was it. No shock, no confusion, just quiet confirmation. That was when I started to realize she wasn't superstitious. She was experienced. By the 7th day, I was sleeping less and watching the clock more. Every sound felt amplified, every second longer. I tried to distract myself by checking trail markers around dusk, taking radio notes, anything to keep my mind busy. Then, just after 10 p.m., it happened. A long, sharp whistle echoed through the valley. It wasn't close, but it carried, high, clean, and perfectly tuned, the kind of sound that makes the air feel thinner. Without thinking, I whistled back. Just a short, 2-note reply. Habit, instinct, I don't even know why. Rangers use whistles to signal sometimes. A few seconds of silence passed. Then it came again, the same whistle. The exact same notes, same pitch, same breath, same length. like someone had recorded me and played it back perfectly. I froze. My heart kicked against my ribs like it was trying to escape. I grabbed the radio. Nora? You hear that? Static. Then her voice cut in, panicked, trembling. Where are you? Station perimeter, I said. There's someone out there, whistling. Before I could finish, the radio hissed. Then, clear as day, my own whistle played through the speaker. I stared at the radio like it had bitten me. Nora was at the station within minutes. She slammed the door shut, snatched the radio from my hands, and turned it off completely. Her face was pale, the kind of pale that comes from recognition, not fear. She looked at me, voice low, shaking. Never whistle back, she said. It knows you now. I didn't ask who it was, because for the first time since I came to Black Hollow, I was terrified of finding out. That night, the air felt heavier than usual, thick, unmoving, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Nora had to leave for an emergency patrol. She didn't say where, just that it couldn't wait until morning. Before heading out, she stopped by the door, lantern light outlining her face. Stay inside, she said. Lock the door. And whatever happens, don't answer the radio between 3:33 and 3:34. Then she was gone, swallowed by the dark. By 2:57 a.m., I was the only living soul awake in the Black Hollow station. Or at least, I thought I was. The radio crackled to life, sharp, sudden, like a match being struck. Static hissed for a few seconds. Then a voice cut through, strained and panicked. Ethan, it's Mason. I'm lost on Trail 9. Please come get me. I froze. Mason Reeves. That name hadn't been spoken aloud since I got here. I'd seen it in the old files. A ranger declared missing the year before. Trail 9 was listed next to his name. The same trail Nora said didn't exist. I stared at the radio. The logical part of my brain fought to explain it. Maybe interference, maybe some sick prank. But then came the screaming. It was faint, distant, like someone yelling through layers of fog. Please, it's dark. I can't. Followed by a burst of static that made the speakers rattle. My pulse hammered in my ears. I looked at the clock. 3:02 a.m. Well before the danger window. I'm coming, I said, before I even realized I was speaking. I grabbed my flashlight, my coat, and the flare gun from the supply cabinet. The cold outside hit like ice, sharp and metallic. The forest was dead silent. No wind, no insects, not even the creak of branches. My boots crunched over the frosted dirt as I followed the trail markers north, one after another, until I noticed something strange. The usual wooden signs, white paint faded with age, had stopped. Then, about 10 feet ahead, a new one appeared. Trail 9 closed. The paint was fresh. The wood was clean, and the ground beneath it was covered in ash, a thin, gray layer that crumbled under my step. I should have turned back. I knew I should have. But Mason's voice kept echoing in my head. I'm lost, Ethan. Please. So I kept going. The deeper I went, the thicker the air became. It smelled faintly of smoke and something else, like wet soil mixed with rot. My flashlight flickered, beams cutting through what looked like drifting soot. Then I saw it. A tent. Yellow canvas, zipped up tight, sitting in the middle of the path like it had been waiting for me. My breath fogged in the cold air as I stepped closer. The zipper trembled. Not from the wind. There was no wind. Something inside was breathing. Slow. Heavy. The fourth rule pulsed in my mind like a heartbeat. If you find a tent that's not on the camping log, don't open it. Don't touch it. Leave immediately. I told myself I'd just circle around, make sure no one was hurt. But curiosity, or guilt, pulled me closer. My hand moved on its own. I gripped the zipper. The second I pulled it open, the smell hit me, cold metal and smoke. And then I saw myself, lying there, eyes wide open, skin pale and ashen, like it had been drained of color. My own face, frozen mid-breath. The chest rose slightly, shallow, rhythmic. It was breathing. I stumbled back, dropped the flashlight. The beam rolled across the dirt, catching the edge of the tent and the outline of the figure inside. My figure, twitching. The ground vibrated softly beneath my boots, like something deep below was moving. Then the light went out. For a moment, everything was swallowed in perfect black. Somewhere behind me, a voice spoke, calm, deliberate, and chillingly familiar. Rule number 6. I turned. There was nothing there. Only darkness. The voice came again, this time right beside my ear. There is no trail 9. I ran. Branches tore at my jacket. Roots caught my feet. The path twisted and changed, markers appearing where they shouldn't. I could hear footsteps behind me, matching mine exactly. Each time I stopped, they stopped too. By the time I reached the station, my lungs were on fire. The eastern sky was just beginning to pale. I slammed the door, locked it, and fell to the floor. The radio was still on, whispering faint static. And just before it went silent, I heard one last sound, my own voice, faint and distant. You shouldn't have opened it. Morning came gray and hollow. The first thing I remembered was the taste of ash on my tongue. The floorboards fell cold under my cheek, and the sunlight that leaked through the blinds looked wrong. Too pale, too distant. When I finally sat up, Nora was standing by the door, silent, face unreadable, a thermos of coffee in her hand. You shouldn't have gone out, she said quietly. You broke the seal. My voice came out hoarse. What the hell is out there, Nora? She didn't answer. Instead, she handed me a rag to wipe my face. The cloth came away black with soot. You went to trail 9, she continued. Then you came back. That's the part that shouldn't be possible. Her tone wasn't angry. It was tired, like she'd already buried too many people who asked the same question. I slammed my hand on the desk. No more riddles. Tell me the truth. What is this place? She studied me for a long time, then nodded slowly, as if making a decision she'd been avoiding for years. Come with me, she said. We walked down the narrow hall to a door I'd never noticed before, steel, with a heavy padlock and layers of dust around the frame. She pulled a ring of keys from her belt, opened it, and flicked on the light. Inside was an old records room, metal filing cabinets stacked to the ceiling, boxes marked archive and property of U.S. Department of Interior. But the symbol stamped on some of them wasn't federal. It was unfamiliar, a black circle intersected by 3 jagged lines. Nora opened one drawer and slid a folder across the desk toward me. The label read, Black Hollow, Anomaly Site 23. The documents inside were yellowed, typed on brittle paper. The first line I read froze me where I stood. Project Echo Vale, Spatial Cognitive Containment Initiative. Authorized 1940. I scanned the paragraphs, reports, field notes, incident logs. Words like mimetic contamination, nonlinear topography, and host replication. This isn't a forest, Nora said softly. Not exactly. It's an overlap, a fracture in what we understand as space. Something lives in that fracture. We call it the gray man. I swallowed hard. And it copies people. Nora nodded. Not to kill them. To keep them. It builds its world from recognition. Faces, voices, memories. The more we look, the more it learns to imitate. I thought a tent. Of the thing breathing inside. Where my face? My throat tightened. That was it. The gray man. Nora shook her head. No. That was you, once the boundary began to blur. The gray man only reflects what crosses too far into its reach. You looked, and it looked back. I stared at her, trying to process it all. So the rules are what? Superstition? No, she said. They're the only thing keeping us anchored. Each one binds a piece of reality, a tether between our world and what's beyond. Break a rule, and you loosen that tether. Too many breaks, and the whole line collapses. She took a deep breath. Every ranger before you who vanished, they didn't die. They converted. Their echoes fill the forest now. That's why we never patrol alone after 10. That's why we don't answer the radio. That's why there is no Trail 9. I sank into the chair, my hands trembling. And you, how do you know all this? For the first time since I'd met her, Nora's expression cracked. Her eyes glistened. Because I wrote the list, she whispered. Back in 1979, when I was young and thought I could contain it. But the forest doesn't forget, Ethan. It remembers every voice that speaks its rules. The room fell silent, except for the faint hum of the old light bulb. Then she added, almost to herself, "And now, it remembers yours too." The clock on the wall ticked toward 3:33 a.m. Outside, the forest was perfectly still. No wind, no crickets, no life. Only the faint hum of the generator filled the silence. Ethan sat at the desk, staring at the list of rules under the lamplight. The paper looked older than before, the edges curling inward, as if trying to fold itself away. The ink shimmered faintly, like it was breathing. He rubbed his temples, exhaustion clouding his thoughts. "It's all in my head," he muttered. "Just tricks and stories." Then, click, the radio came alive. Static first, then a voice. "Don't listen to it." Nora's voice. Clear, urgent, trembling. Ethan froze. "Nora." But before he could touch the dial, another sound bled through the static, his own voice overlapping hers. "You left me out there." Every word was heavy, wet, like someone speaking through smoke. Ethan stared at the radio in horror. "That's not possible," he whispered. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. The air turned heavy, thick with the smell of burning pine. From beneath the floorboards came a soft knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps. He remembered the rule. At dawn, if you hear knocking under the floorboards, knock back once. Never twice. It wasn't dawn, but instinct screamed to follow the rule. Then the knocks came again, louder. "Knock, knock, knock." He stepped back, heart hammering. "Stop," he said, his voice cracking. But fear and instinct warred inside him, and his hand moved before his mind caught up. He lifted his knuckles and knocked back. Once. Then, after a heartbeat, twice. Silence. A single breath seemed to move through the cabin, though no one was there. The floorboards trembled beneath his feet. Then came the sound of splitting wood, sharp, violent, wrong. A crack spread across the floor, glowing faintly from beneath, like firelight seen through ash. Ethan stumbled back as a smell of smoke and rot filled the air. From the crack, a hand emerged, black, skeletal, dripping soot. Its fingers stretched impossibly long, searching, clutching. He tried to run, but the boards buckled, splintered, and the hand shot upward, wrapping around his ankle. "Nora!" he screamed. She burst through the doorway, flashlight in hand, just as Ethan was yanked off his feet. She grabbed his arm, digging her nails into his sleeve. "Hold on." But the pull was too strong, like gravity inverted. The blackness beneath the floor wasn't a hole. It was a mouth. Nora's fingers slipped. Ethan's last words were a whisper, strangled and distant. "Trail 9 doesn't exist." The board slammed shut. Silence. The radio crackled once more, steady and calm, broadcasting a single loop of Ethan's voice, repeating endlessly through the static. "Trail 9 doesn't exist. Trail 9 doesn't exist. Trail 9 doesn't exist." A week passed. The forest of Black Hollow lay still again, blanketed in its usual hush, as if nothing had ever happened. The new ranger arrived just after dawn. His name was Cole Avery, 29, freshly assigned from the Sacramento district. The station looked abandoned when he first stepped inside. Dust coated every surface. The generator hummed faintly in the back room, but there was no sign of anyone. Still, the logbook on the desk listed the current supervisor as Ranger Ethan Ward. Cole frowned. "Guess I'll finally meet the guy." He unpacked his bag and noticed a folded sheet of paper under a cracked mug. The paper was yellow, edges singed, the ink nearly gone. Typed in uneven font at the top. "Rules for the Black Hollow Rangers." Cole chuckled softly, reading aloud. "Never patrol alone after 10 p.m. Don't talk to deer. Knock back once." It felt like some initiation prank. Then he noticed something odd, a line at the very bottom, written by hand in red ink, fresher than the rest. 8. If you ever hear a voice that sounds like me, don't answer. Cole frowned, the smile fading. What the hell does that mean? Outside, the trees swayed though the wind was still. He turned toward the window and froze. There, at the edge of the tree line, stood a man in ranger uniform. Pale, motionless, skin the color of ash. Even from that distance, Cole could tell the man was smiling. Then the lights went out, and from the radio came a calm, steady voice. "Welcome to Black Hollow, Ranger Avery."